Hello, English 221. This is your video for week 13 class, and it is about the logic of predicting the future. First, a quick reminder that you should do the homework first, and you can see what it is in week 13 assignments here, and the readings, of course, are in Essay 3 2100 here. Now to the PowerPoint. The logic of predicting the future. A prediction is an empirical claim, not normative, meaning it's a kind of factual claim, not a statement of values or value judgment or a moral claim. A prediction is a very uncertain empirical claim, but is empirical nonetheless. Example, which are not empirical. Hint, two of them. Go ahead and read those. Most of these are empirical claims. They are predictions of the future. They are empirical. They could be right or wrong. They may or may not have evidence, but they are definitely empirical. C, however, is a normative claim. It makes a value judgment. E is also a normative claim. When you say, I think this will happen in 2100, that's empirical. If you say, this is what I want to happen, or this is what I hope will happen, then you're starting to express your values, and you're starting to make normative claims. Sometimes values, assumptions, and implied appeals to principle are present, even in our readings that are making empirical claims. So Newit's and sex robots could save your relationship. If you haven't read this article, you should pause the video, go read it, and then come back. Newitz predicts that non-traditional gender identities and relationships will proliferate in the future. Her empirical claim. However, she's not neutral. She thinks these changes are a good thing, her normative claim. Remember, predictions are empirical claims. You can see the following in Newitz, meaning if you read the article, you can tell she believes these things, even when she's not saying so directly. Implied appeal to principle. People should be free to choose their own gender identities and personal relationships. Values assumptions. Newitz assumes that diversity is good. She does not value traditional ways, though she doesn't reject them completely. She values emotional connection. She assumes that change is good. We are always making inferences about the future based on evidence we have now. So this is based on the article by Cohn and the Pew Research Center. And this article is called Future Immigration Will Change the Face of America by 2065 from the Pew Research Center by Devera Cohn. So hit pause if you need to go read that one. And this is my attempt to summarize the logic of what they're doing. Population and poll data we have today shows that data about change in populations we have today shows that. Therefore, in 2065, the U.S. population will be. So the Pew Research Center is analyzing data. They have population numbers. They have numbers of immigrants from various places that live in the United States. They have data about how the population has changed in the last 30 years, things like that. And based on all of that, they make an inference, which is inductive, about the U.S. population. Predictions of the future are examples of inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning makes an inference claim based on specific support. It goes from specific to general. Inferences about the future are inductive. Example, prediction of sea level rise by 2100 due to global warming. Number one, thousands of specific data points about sea levels, now and in the past, plus data about warming air, loss of Arctic sea ice, and more. I am not a scientist, so I cannot tell you about all this data. However, when people infer that sea level will rise say 2 feet by 2100, they are doing inductive reasoning based on all that data, at least if they're doing a good job. So the scientific community has made inferences or predictions about sea level rise based on lots and lots and lots and lots of data and specifics, and those inferences are inductive. Here's another example of inductive reasoning. This one's also from Newitz. And this is my attempt to kind of diagram her argument, kind of like we were doing during essay 1. Number 1, people now exist who are transgender, non-binary, bigender, or gender non-conforming. People with these gender identities are more visible in society now than in the past. So remember, we're making an inference based on information we have now. 3, therefore, people with these identities will be even more visible and numerous in the future. So this is the inference here. Based on some information we have now, Newitz infers something about the future, and that is inductive reasoning. Sometimes we use a kind of analogy. We predict future change based on a change in the past. We say it will be similar in the future. And here's a fun example. In the late 1800s, large cities like New York were in crisis because horses were filling the streets with poop. However, at the same time, the automobile was invented. By 1912, there were more cars than horses in New York. Therefore, like the end of the manure crisis, new technology in the future will dramatically change life in American cities. So this is an example from the past. And so it's kind of an analogy because you say it will be similar in the future. This is another kind of inductive inference. It could be wrong. Maybe the future won't be the same. Many of our readings use appeal to authority as evidence type. Example, Newitz again. In her article, Sex Robots Could Save Your Relationship. Newitz cites and quotes various experts. And when she does that, that's appeal to authority. We have, quote, Jay Steinbacher, a non-binary writer and administrator at Clarion West Writers Workshop. We hear from Carrie Jenkins, an ethical philosopher at the University of British Columbia, and from Kim Tallbear, an anthropologist in Indigenous Studies at the University of Alberta, and many more. So these are the evidence type here is appeal to authority. Based on this testimony, her support, Newitz infers that we will have great gender and relationship diversity in the future, her claim. These appeals to authority are very interesting, and we could talk a lot about them. Really, it depends on how good the evidence is that Steinbacher, Jenkins, and Tallbear have. If the expert has good evidence, then this argument is stronger. If the expert doesn't have good evidence, then the argument is weaker. Also, you can see that Newitz is talking up her sources by telling us who they are. We have 2 professors here. Sometimes she'll call somebody a writer, and it's not clear what that means. And does being a writer make you an expert? Or does being non-binary make Steinbacher an expert? Those are interesting questions that you can ponder, but definitely notice it when it's happening. Your goal in Essay 3, reasonable inferences about life and the world. Notice that you will not be proving that your thesis is good. That's too strong. Your goal is to be reasonable. You want to, if you give us a picture in Essay 3 of 2100 that's reasonable, where you infer things about 2100 and it makes sense, it's reasonable, then you've done your job. All these inferences are uncertain, so we must argue with humility. To do that, you might use language like this. This suggests, notice you won't say this proves, that's too strong. This suggests in 2100. If projections by the Pew Research Center are correct, then This prediction could be wrong. However, it appears that, therefore, it is likely that in 2100, it is quite possible that in 2100, if Newitz is correct, then it seems that 2100, notice you give yourself an out. So all of these show that you know that the future is uncertain. And so you are making arguments humbly. I think that at our best, here in a college, we do this. We are not arrogant like in the outrage media. We make arguments with humility. And we are aware when we have strong evidence and when we don't. And I believe that is my last slide. Thank you for watching the video.